give the board an update as to the election. The staff came in at 5 a.m. this morning to prepare for the election. The majority of phone calls that came in from poll workers came between 5:30 to 7 o'clock a.m. with a great reduction of calls occurring by 9:30 a.m. For the most part, we're having a pretty good election, but don't get me wrong, we've had issues, some issues out there related to poll workers, polling locations, and devices, but those are somewhat a normal course for every election. But let me kind of point out some of those. There were a number of no-shows, like we have in every election as far as election justice goes. I don't have a quantity for you today. I think it's going to be some time before we can do that, because normally we have our no-shows according to the payroll that we receive, which is processed after the election. These are, and as far as the no-show goes, these are either being filled or in the process of being filled. At this time, there are 22 presiding judges that we don't have in place. Staff is in contact with precincts to ensure that the transfer of the responsibilities are conducted to another poll worker within that precinct. Political balance remains in all precincts that we are aware of at this time. Of course, we are closely monitoring that. We have seen signs where precincts are not sharing the devices. Again, this is kind of somewhat of an institutional practice. When we were in a punch card era, we had specific voting devices for specific voting precincts, and now in this electronic voting system, individuals or precincts within a polling location can share any of the devices in there. So we've seen some situations where poll workers are not sharing of the devices, which may produce long lines, and I'll get to that in a second here. We did see one instance where the presiding judge wiped the encoders, where we had to send out staff and making sure that the encoders was reprogrammed appropriately. Regarding the polling locations, we had a total of 6 polling locations where the custodians did not arrive after 6 a.m. Polling locations that did not open on time, there were 4. Those locations were Dunbar Elementary, Woodbury Elementary, Boulevard Elementary, and Beachland Presbyterian. Of those 4 polling locations, Dunbar Elementary, there were 5 voters that were not able to cast their ballot at that time. Again, optical scans were offered but that was subsequent after the 5 individuals had left. Total number of optical scans. If the devices were not set up on time according to 6:30, we allowed voters to cast an optical scan ballots. Of those polling locations, let me read those off to you. We have Westwood, Woodbury School, Coventry Elementary, Lonnie Barton, Alcazar Hotel, and Fuchs Mizrachi, and Grace Christian Missionary Alignments. And I don't want to just isolate it to those, but those are the ones that staff is aware of, and I want to make sure that those are noted. Again, getting back to what I said earlier as far as long lines goes, we are getting reports of some long lines in isolated areas. In most cases, we have not heard of any precinct where there is over 30 individuals in that line. We have sent as many devices as we can. What we've had to do, though, is prioritize those deliveries, making sure that any devices that needed to be corrected first were the ones that were going to receive the first priority, and then any devices that we had still on hand, we would send those out. One of the things that we're experiencing this election is, which is, I think, one of the learning lessons, and which we've received in previous elections also, is the high rate of duplicate calls of the same issue over and over again. And of course that backlogs our phones and makes us do more work and try to isolate what are the respective issues. I think one of the tremendous things and successful things that have occurred is that our IVR system, our interactive voice response system, where we have that monitoring system as to what polling locations are up and running, if there are any precincts or polling locations that are adversely affected. And we've been able to respond more effectively and timely, and I think that's what this election is about, is the ability, in any election for that matter, is the ability to respond accordingly in a timely fashion. Poll workers, again, I've already mentioned the issue of the poll workers not sharing the devices. Let me talk about the devices themselves. I think a couple things that we've seen within the devices, again, the same things that we experienced in May, is, we've had some hardware issues regarding the legs. And we've seen a share of phone calls dealing with that, as well as the printers, where we've had to send out staff and to correct those, or technicians that were trained, and send those out to correct them, and getting those devices up and running. I haven't received, or we have not received, any issues of screen freezes that we're aware of. That's not to say that there are there. It's just that we have not been made aware of any of those issues. Then there's the anecdotal sides of this. We get phone calls, and we're getting phone calls from a number of sources, from interested organizations to the poll workers themselves to the election day technicians. We received 3 questions dealing with the calibration of the devices, and we verified that where, in fact, there was one potential calibration issue where we've had to set the device aside, and which the technicians have done so. Another issue is dealing with observer rights. As per House Bill 3, when they changed, the General Assembly passed that bill, and when it took into effect, there are some questions out there between the poll workers and election day technicians and the observers, and that interaction between each other as to whether there should be an interaction. We've had some situations where poll workers and election day technicians have contacted law enforcement and asked those individuals to be removed from the polling locations. Interested organizations, one of the items that we've heard also is interested organizations posting signs redirecting voters to a different location. Regular voters, the other issues is for those polling locations that were...
Don't leave that point. Organizations are suggesting that voters go to other locations?
What we've seen is signs posted redirecting individuals instead of from the polling location that they're going to a different location. So there's signs out there in the field that are redirecting. At least those are the phone calls that we've been receiving.
Michael, have you notified the law authorities?
I have not personally not notified. The individual that I need to get more information is our elections administration director to determine whether or not law enforcement were sent out in that case.
Mike, I really think that speaking on behalf of all the board, anything like that happens, we want to know who the perpetrators are. And they are interfering with the election process at that point. And I think it's important that the proper authorities notify and refer to the prosecutor of the U.S. Attorney's Office.
And that may have occurred. I just don't have that information available to me right now.
Okay. Michael, then.
You know what location that was?
I don't know.
Were there a number of locations?
Excuse me?
Were there a number of locations?
I'm only aware of one. The other item...
Excuse me, Michael, would Jackie have that information?
Yes,